Maria Sharapova is here. She is a five-time Grand Slam tennis champion and one of the world's highest-paid and highest-profile athletes. In January, she tested positive for meldonium. It is a heart medication recently banned by anti-doping regulators. She disclosed the infraction during a news conference in March.
I wanted to let you know that a few days ago I received a letter from the ITF that I had failed a drug test at the Australian Open. I did fail the test, and I take full responsibility for it.
In June, the International Tennis Federation banned Sharapova from competition for 2 years. Today, the Court of Arbitration for Sports, CAS, announced that it was reducing her suspension by 9 months. The ruling held that the ITF's original penalty went too far for a violation that was committed unintentionally. Sharapova is now cleared to return to competitive tennis in April in time for the French Open and Wimbledon, the U.S. Open. I am pleased to have her here at this table for the first time. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Tell me your reaction to this decision that came from Switzerland.
Friday morning was a beautiful day for me and my family and my friends, and just the thought of coming back. I was in my bedroom and I received the note from Cass, and I just screamed down to the first floor to my mother that I'm coming back. And it was, yeah, the last 7 months or so I've been really strong. I knew that I had to. And then she came up and she ran up the stairs and I gave her a hug, and all of a sudden I was just so emotional. It was like everything let go because something that I wanted so much, I was having another opportunity at it.
How heavy did it hang on you? A 2-year suspension.
It was a lot. It was a lot, and it was, I went through so many different emotions from finding out when I received the first email that I had taken the substance, and that it was a shock to me. I said, how did I not know about this? So I went through this shock, anger, sadness, and then I don't know, something inside of me just went above everything, and I felt like it was almost the process of going through a breakup. And I went through all these emotions. Yes, I went through all these emotions, and in the end, like after a little time, I felt really above it. There's some sort of strength in me that just felt really good about things, and I went through two different hearings, and obviously I was very nervous about all of them, but I was so strong inside, and I knew that the truth of my story and me being upfront and honest from the beginning would get me through this, and it did.
It came after investigation, as you suggest.
Yeah.
You testified and some of your team
Yes.
testified, and they looked carefully into it. Is it for you a repudiation of the International Tennis Federation?
It is. It's sad to say that, but I think it really is. I feel that in many ways, if I have this incredible opportunity to play tennis again, but what I went through, and as I said when I received the email back in March, I was so shocked in the first place because I was taking a substance that was completely legal for 10 years, that a doctor had recommended for me after so many different medical tests. I was 18 years old, I had won a Grand Slam, and all of a sudden I'm sitting in my bedroom, I get an email from the ITF saying I had this violation, and it was
This
for
was right
something.
after the Australian Open.
Yes, it was after Australian Open. It was actually a month after, so it was some time
But
afterward.
the testing took place at the time of the
Yes,
Australian
the
Open.
testing took place at the Australian Open, and it was. I just thought, how could I have not known this? There were so many ways I could have known, and I did not. And I've had a lot of time to think about it, and I think I took it for granted that I became comfortable with the fact that it was just natural for me to take something that was completely legal, that I was getting laboratory reports from Moscow and confirmation that it was legal.
This was prescribed for you by your doctor in Moscow.
It actually wasn't even prescribed. It was an over-the-counter product.
But he suggested you use it.
Yes, when I was 18.
For diabetes possibilities,
Well,
for some heart
mostly
issues.
because I had irregular EKGs starting when I was 18 years old, and they were quite concerned with it. And I think it just came with all the physical demand I started receiving after winning a big major, playing more tournaments, teenager at the time. Went to a doctor. I'd never had a doctor before, and was like, well, going home, I'm basically don't want to practice for a week. This is not the normal feeling for an 18-year-old. And so my parents are like, well, we should probably find a doctor to do some blood work, to do some examinations. And after doing all of that, I started taking...
It's called meldonium at the time.
Well, I always knew it as Mildrenut. And actually, yes. So when I received the email in March and I saw meldonium, first thing I did, I got on my phone and I Googled what meldonium was. I had no clue. I had always seen it as Mildrenut, and that's what hundreds and millions of people in Russia see it as.
But not used here and not used in
No.
Europe as well,
No,
just in Russia and some other country.
Yes, and the majority of Eastern European countries, by millions of people. And parents, grandparents, my grandparents take it.
Do you consider it a performance enhancer?
Oh, absolutely not.
You don't?
I never ever...
Even now, I mean, you don't think that it has the possibility of enhancing performance?
No, because I know how common it is. I know how common it is. I know that it's on the vital and essential list in Russia, which protects along with ibuprofen. It's taken as aspirin in Russia. So to me, I can't even grasp my head around that fact. And when I first started taking it, I took it under my doctor's orders, and that's how I kept taking it for years.
One issue is, why didn't you know?
Right.
They sent you a notification in December.
Well,
Might somebody in your team who knew you were taking
Right.
this, there were others who knew you were taking it.
Right.
Why didn't they know?
Because the notifications were completely inadequate. It was false advertisement. The emails that we had received saying main changes to the anti-doping rules had no additions to the prohibited list, had no signs, no warnings. If you look at the other federations, weightlifting, figure skating, none of this, if I was in that association or part of that federation, none of this would have happened.
A more significant set of warnings you're suggesting in other
There
sports?
were no warnings from the ITF. No one.
They have said clearly, and they said a number of things in this, as a result of the investigation, the report that they had today. They said that they rejected the core argument that you were significantly at fault for taking a prohibitive substance to enhance performance, that you did not try to hide the use, that you took it in good faith over a long period of time. They said, among other things, that this was not about an athlete who cheated. Under no circumstances could you be considered an international doper. So the question has to do with their motive, in part. How could they be so believe that this, in your words, deserved a 24-month suspension?
Well, I got a 24-month suspension, but they wanted 4 years from me, Charlie.
They wanted 4 years.
The ITF wanted to ban me for 4 years. And I went through the ITF hearing, which in front of an arbitration that was chosen by the ITF. So I'm in a hearing knowing that the people I'm speaking to, this was 4 or 5 months back in London, the people that I'm speaking to were chosen by the people that I'm actually in a fight with. So that, I'm not sure, they call that neutral. That's not neutral. CAS is neutral, and this is what CAS has awarded to me.
Or do you think they were trying to make an example of you?
I never wanted to believe that, but I'm starting to think that.
Someone
Yes.
used the expression tall poppy.
Never heard that expression.
Well, I think it's suggesting that you were, perhaps in the minds of some, an example to say doping has no place, and suggesting that, in fact, no matter how strong and how celebrated the person was, you know, if they thought that they were using drug enhancement, they would take them down.
Right. It's hard for me to speak for them. I think that I know what I was fighting against, and I was fighting, I was fighting for my right to get back to the court by making an honest mistake. But I was also fighting an organization that wanted to ban me for 4 years. And that was wrong. That was wrong because they didn't do their part. From the beginning, I came out 3 days after I got that letter about the violation. I came out to the world and I explained my story. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the fact.
Because you wanted to control your own case. I mean, you wanted to make sure that...
No, because that's, when I saw that, I knew I wanted the world to know. There was no way I was going to tell people I'm injured, or let me just wait this out, or pretend like it's something I'm not. This is it.
But you wanted to take command of it yourself, in a sense.
I think, yes, and I owed it to my fans. I owed it to, fans that wake up in the middle of the night to watch me play, that have supported me, that have died through my matches. I owe that to them, yes.
There are two aspects of this. Number one is, as you're going through this, did you find that people who you expected to support you didn't?
You know what I learned is I think I've always been an athlete that, I've said this from the very beginning of my career, I've never personally had a role model when I grew up. I watched television, but there was never one person that I said, I want to be just like them. And as I've been going through my career, and young girls and boys would come up to me and say, I want to be just like you, I would say, no, you want to be better than me. You know, like, dream to be even better than I ever was. But during this process, I really realized how impactful my career has been towards millions of people, and how I've impacted young girls and boys, an older generation that have watched me through a 17-year-old girl to now, how much they've admired me, the amount of people that have stopped me in the last 7 months, is more than I've ever seen in my life, saying, I hope you get through this. You absolutely deserve to get back. You never deserve to get punished like this by the ITF. This is wrong. The amount of people that I didn't know in different industries contacted me, emailed me, showed their support. And it was, I think that's when I realized that, you know, I always try to, maybe I was a little bit naive about everything, my accomplishments and how I've impacted so many people's lives and I've inspired them. And it really made me realize that, no, you set an example, and that's why I was proud of the fact that I came out and was able to say that.
Were your sponsors and the people who you have endorsement contracts with fully supportive from day one? Or did they pull back and say, let's see this through?
My sponsors have been incredible. And I must admit, it was difficult in the beginning because none of them knew until my announcement.
Didn't know about it until you came forward.
Didn't know about it until I came forward, until my press conference. So from that point of view, it was a shock to everyone, as I'm sure, but I wanted it to come from me and not from anyone else, and that's why for 3 days only a small group of people knew about it. You know, Nike made a pretty tough statement, and it was hard. I've been with them since I was 11 years old. I don't even remember word by word, but it was aggressive in a way that they've been through a lot with athletes, and I took it personal because I consider them my family. I have a lot of pride in being part of their family. So it took a little bit of time to speak to Mark Parker about, you know, what happened.
And then when you told him?
We had a great conversation, and he's been amazing, and yeah, all my sponsors have been incredibly supportive.
So you will not lose any sponsors because of this?
I hope not.
But the interesting question too is it, you know, a remarkable career, but to be away for 24 months could have had, I mean, you're in what, 29? Yes?
I am 29.
You're 29.
Don't say it like that.
Well, no, I mean, but you have a remarkable career, but this kind of absence, if it had been 2 years or 4 years, could have had an incredible impact on your career. It could have been over.
Absolutely. My career was never going to end this way. Never. From the first day I got that letter, that was when I started my comeback. I started my comeback in March.
Did you ever doubt that you'd be sitting here today, you know, feeling very good about the future?
I never doubted that I'd be back. I certainly had tough days and negative days, and I went through the ups and downs.
And who did you depend on when those days were bad? Your mother?
My mother, my mother, my father,
team.
my team, a very small group of people. My coach has been amazing through this whole process. I feel there were people in my career and in my life at this time for certain reasons, and one of them was this.
Let me talk about the career. I mean, you were born in Chernobyl.
I was.
And then your father...
Well, I was born, right, so my mother was pregnant with me for 8 months, about 30 kilometers from the explosion.
And you left Chernobyl?
Left Chernobyl.
For Sochi?
That was in Belarus, and then we fled to Russia while my mom was pregnant. That's why I was born in Russia. I was born in the north, in Siberia. And when I was 2, we moved down to Sochi, much warmer place.
And the story is that Martina Navratilova saw you when you were like 7.
Yes, so I started playing tennis when I was 4, and when I was about 5 and a half, 6, someone in Sochi at a tennis park, because I went with my dad, he played recreationally, and they had said that I had talent. I'm not sure how anyone could say that when you're 6-year-old, as a 6-year-old girl, but they said that there's an exhibition that Martina Navratilova is hosting in Moscow with another 200 kids, and they said, why don't you go and be part of it? And so my father and I went, and I was on court with hundreds of kids, and it was chaos. And she was, you know, feeding a few balls to the kids, having a little chat, and I'm not exactly sure what happened, but the next thing you know, I did see her coming up to my dad and having a conversation. And I think what she said was that she thought that I had talent and that we should do something about it. So a year and a half later, we were on our flight to Miami.
On your way to see Nick Bollettieri.
To see Nick Bollettieri.
And he didn't take you at first glance. It took you 2 years.
Yes, I think, well, we went to a few different academies, kind of knocked on everyone's door unexpectedly. Here's a 7-year-old girl, she just wants to play tennis, and she has this dream, and eventually I've never been back to Russia ever since to live.
You've never been back to live?
I've been, not to live,
yeah.
no.
And your mother came later?
Yes, I didn't, so I came with my father, because he got a working visa, and I joined him as someone that could at that time with that type of visa, and my mom couldn't come for the first 2 years. So I didn't see her the first 2 years. I couldn't go back and go in and out of the country, so.
You just simply had to communicate in whatever way you could.
Yeah, at that time, I believe it was just regular male.
When did you know that you had the right stuff, that you could win competitively against some of the best players in the world?
I don't like to ever know that, because that's what keeps me motivated. That's what keeps me on the edge. I never feel that I'm great. People ask me the question about legacy and you're a Grand Slam champion, you've been #1 in the world, and I go to a tournament as if I never won it, because I always feel that I have to have that edge in a way where I inspire my own self, and that's how I do it.
Well, you've won the French Grand Slam. You've won Roland Garros twice.
Yeah.
So the next time we see you playing competitively will be at Roland Garros.
That'll be my first Grand Slam back. Get the slide board out.
Tell me how you see your game today?
Well, I haven't seen it in 7-8 months, so I don't know what to say about that. It's funny. I haven't thought about my game in
so this
in
has
a while.
preoccupied you since that you got the phone call from them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I've been very occupied. I've actually haven't been home that much. I've traveled a lot. I've done things that I just never had the opportunity to do in a time where I didn't know what my future would be or had so many questions. I actually felt like I had a schedule and I had a plan, and I never knew what weekends felt like. And for the first time, I actually know that, oh, there's a Saturday and there's a Sunday, and I'm actually looking forward to those days, whereas before, your mindset's so different. The weekends are Grand Slam finals, and that's what you're working for. So that perspective has changed. And also in terms of training, I've been training in a very different way, where I'm not training for a tournament. I'm not training for to get back in a few months. I was just training for myself, and I felt so good. It felt so good because you're doing it for you. You're doing it to feel good. And I feel that how I set the tone was the day after I had made the announcement. It was a very long night. As you can imagine, I didn't get much sleep, and I signed up for a spinning class at 8:30 a.m. And I knew it might have been wishful thinking, but I was like, at least if I sign up, I won't be able to get a refund, so I'm gonna go for it. And at about 7:45, I called my coach and I said, I don't think I'm gonna make this class, because he was in town with me. And he's like, okay, I mean, obviously it's understandable, but at 8 a.m. I got out of bed and I was like, I'm going. And I set the standard for myself that I was gonna push the limit, and I was gonna push myself. And I went there, and for an hour of that class, I was miserable because I had no energy. I had one of the longest days in my career, but I pushed through it, and I felt like that set the tone for my body, for my mind. And ever since, I've been doing different workouts, I've been training differently, and it's all been for me.
So you feel like some of the best tennis may be ahead of you?
I hope so. I know that I just yesterday got the best gift that I could have got for my 30th birthday.
You had some reason to believe that they would reduce the suspension simply based on what they've done in the past. I mean, I'm sure John,
right,
your attorney, had said, they have done this in the past, and with some variety of occasions.
But you never know. Look, the ITF's tribunal in the past has been overruled by CAS in the last 6 times, including my case. So yes, of course, you can be optimistic and you can be hopeful and you can be all those things, but you're going into this.
But it's your life and your career that's at stake.
Yeah, and you can't go into it thinking, yes, I went into the CAS hearing with a different mindset. I went into it as, you know what, this is my career on my line, and I'm going to do something about it. Yeah, I think it was more of an internal feeling.
Do you feel like it's a fair description of you to say, be defined as tough in the face of adversity? That somehow the kind of life that you have lived has given you some of that stuff?
I believe so. And I've never used the word rejection in my life. I don't believe in rejection. I don't believe in no's. I just get through it. I was born to be a warrior, and in tennis and in my life.
How were you born to be a warrior?
Because there's something when I've had challenges in my life, I've persevered, and that's not just in me. I feel that in whether you're a tennis player, whether you're in another career, when you have challenging moments in your life. My first one in my life came when I had shoulder surgery. I was out for a year, and there's something during that period that builds. You don't know what's happening, but it's something inside of you that builds. It almost becomes an immunity to pain almost. And during that time, I was training, I was doing everything I could with no knowledge that I would ever go back on the tennis court after shoulder surgery, with no one that I could look to that ever came back and won a Grand Slam after shoulder surgery. But I went through it, and I just, day after day after day, I grinded it out, I kept going. And when I went back on the court and I was playing tournaments and I was making errors and, you know, losing matches maybe I shouldn't have lost, and people were saying she's never going to come back, nothing fazed me. Because something that I built inside of myself, this strength that I built over that time, got me through that. And this is, for me, this is another example of that.
That's my point. When you go on the court against Serena, in your mind you think you're going to win.
Of course.
Yes, I know.
Why would you go on the court if that's not the way that you think?
Well, some people can intimidate other people. I mean, you know, she's won more of the recent matches one-on-one against you than you have won in a significant way.
Yes, in a huge way. But that's, as a competitor, you can't think like that when you go out on the court. You should just leave. You should book your ticket.
If you think that you can't win,
of course,
you don't want to be on the court anymore, regardless of who's at the other side.
Not that you don't want to. You shouldn't.
But some people can intimidate because of the strength of their game.
Yeah.
And in fact, you did that to people.
Look, I think there's definitely, when I walk on the court, and a lot of times, I feel that I have a great edge, and I haven't even hit a ball. And it's a great feeling to have.
Because you have confidence in what you can do.
Yeah, it's a confidence that transitions into, you see, in tennis it's different, a little bit maybe than other sports, but you don't have to be the best version of yourself every single day. You just have to be better than your opponent on that day. So if that means that you're better than your opponent by being mediocre on that day, that's good enough on that day.
And when you lose, what do you say to yourself? My opponent happened to be better than I am this day.
I mean, that's one of a few things I say. I'm a little
what else do you say?
I'm a little more critical than that. I'm tough on myself. I'm tough because I expect a lot from myself. I do. What do I train for if I don't?
And so what do you think you can do in tennis now? Win Grand Slams? You've won every Grand Slam. You've won the U.S. Open. You've won the French. You've won Wimbledon. You've won the Australian. That puts you in the Hall of Fame right there. Yes. Well, of course it does. So what are the career objectives now?
Is to continue that, to I don't think of a particular title. I don't think of a particular trophy. I don't think of a particular tournament. There's no, of course the Grand Slams are special, and especially when I've had the amazing opportunity to hold all four. But when I go in the middle of nowhere to play at a tournament, and it's a smaller event that's maybe not covered on TV, my attitude of the way that I enter the court is no different than when I go out and play a finals of a Grand Slam. So, of course, I want to say, yes, I want to win Grand Slams, but it doesn't matter if I'm going out and playing an exhibition. You know, I still travel with my team to make sure that I'm doing the right things.
Who's on your team?
My coach. My physio, my fitness coach, and a hitting partner. And occasionally my mother travels with me.
One of the people who said nice things about you during this thing and who quickly came to your defense was the #1 male player in the world, Novak Djokovic. And really said, supportive, believed in you, had confidence in you. It means something.
It does. Yeah, it means a lot. Public wording is a little bit different. I received than personal messages that I received. I received a lot of personal notes and emails and text messages.
Saying what? Believe in you, hang in there,
messages of support. Yeah, from many players and many top male players as well. And it was actually every time I'd receive one of those messages, like I'd be quite strong and, you know, okay, it's all going well, and then I'd receive one of those messages and I'd just get so emotional because the respect level it's incredible. I've always said that, you know, I've gotten the great opportunity to meet people from different industries, actors, musicians, but when I meet athletes, there's this sense of respect for each other just because we know our careers and we know them from the insides and outs and the sacrifice we give and what it takes. So it meant a lot to me, absolutely.
There is also this, though, one you did not know. Nobody in your team knew. You didn't open the email, the one email. And I guess there was some question as to whether they had made repeated efforts before.
The ITF?
Yes. Did they do that or not?
Oh no, I opened all the emails in 2015. But none of them talked about the new prohibited list.
There was no email that you opened that said there's a new prohibitive list. Is the point?
Because that didn't exist, and that's been talked about in the CAS report. They didn't
So
send
here we have a
sufficient
case, though,
enough
and this is the important point, too.
warnings.
You didn't intend to take a performance-enhancing drug. You took something that you thought you were taking for medical reasons.
I didn't think I was.
You were. Just a question of intent. Yet you're going to have to sit out 15 months.
It's a lot.
That's a lot. It's not fair, or is fair? Or do you simply say, yes, I did this thing, it was a prohibited drug, and therefore I simply have to take the medicine that they have prescribed?
Well, according to the rules, the current rules in the current system, I couldn't, it was impossible to get less than a year. So I knew when this had happened that I would be out for a year, for sure.
Because by
that's
definition,
the
if you take performance-enhancing drugs, you have to get a year's suspension.
In the tennis rule book,
Right.
not in other sports, not
Right.
if you look at baseball or football, no, in tennis, for this particular substance, in the category that it was in.
So it's defined almost by law.
Yes, so that was the lease. So I received 15 months because I did not delegate to my manager how he was checking that list. I just gave him the responsibility from 2013, and in 2015 that list wasn't checked, and that's why I got the 3 extra months.
So what's the lesson you've learned from this?
I've learned many lessons. I've learned many lessons. I've learned that there are a lot of things that could have been done to prevent this.
By you and your team?
By myself being more proactive, by speaking to my manager at the end of last year and saying, how did you check this? Did you check it? Is it permissible? But then, as I've been going through this process, I've learned how much more other federations did in this case around this substance.
And trying to inform players and athletes.
Well, they informed players directly. We're not in hiding. We play over 20 tournaments a year. We're constantly on the road at events. The ITF organizers are always around us. I played the Fed Cup final last year, and that was in November, which is one of the biggest ITF events for the year. I've been on the monitoring list through WADA last year, where they tested me numerous times. They knew that I was taking meldonium, and there was no direct access to me. I was right there. They could have told me.
They knew you would take it, and then it became on the list, and they
Yes.
should have told you because they knew you were taking it. They owed that to you.
Well, they owed there's a reason why there's a monitoring list, right? And there's no, they said there's a confidentiality breach if they would let me know. But what confidentiality breach would there be if they went directly to me? Been like, this is a very popular substance in Eastern Europe. Millions of people take it. It's like aspirin in the United States. Why not make a bigger notice of it towards Eastern European players?
Do you know other players who are taking it?
I do not.
You don't?
No.
Other players from Eastern Europe or from Russia? Just never talked about.
No.
When you look at this, it raises questions by the nature of all the exposure this has gotten as to whether there is doping, a drug enhancement, performance enhancement in tennis. Is there, to a significant degree, in your judgment?
I think I can only speak from this case and from my own experience. I can't speak on behalf of anyone else or other players. You know, when I found out about my violation, I took it into my own hands. I knew my medical history. I knew why I was taking the substance under doctor's orders, and that's it. As far as anything else that goes on, I have no idea.
Knowledge, no information,
no
sense of
knowledge.
it. Players
And I've
don't
never
talk about
really,
it.
no, not at all.
There's the old saying that if it doesn't kill me, it makes me stronger. Does this make you stronger?
Oh, I believe in that saying so much. I do. I do believe there are a lot of things in my life that have made me really strong, and I had a very tough upbringing. I moved to the United States as a young girl with my parents. We didn't have much money.
With one parent, yeah.
With one parent, with $700, with no knowledge of where we're going in the United States. We went through that. I was living a dream. I mean, basically, my parents paved the way for me to realize my dream and my potential, and I'm riding that. And I've gone through a lot, and this is part of my journey. And there's no doubt in my mind that, as I said before, I started my comeback in March, and I'm coming back in April.
Thank you for staying here, stopping by here.
Thank you for having me.
Maria Sharapova, back in a moment. Stay with us.